Hi, my name is Stephanie.
And I'm Kateri.
And this is Garrett. And we are going to do a little show for you today. We have my other children might be joining us, Declan and Annabelle. But we have a special box right here. And inside this box, there are 4 items. Kitty, don't look. Garrett, don't look. Let's see what 4 items are in this box. Item number 1. Close your eyes. This is item number 1. I want you to try to guess what it is. I want you to see if you can smell it.
Where is it?
Right there.
Baking cocoa.
Baking cocoa! It is. It's cocoa. Baking cocoa. Oh my goodness. It can even turn me a little brown. Baking cocoa. Ooh. Very pretty. Oh, you like that? It's like makeup. Baking cocoa. So something about cocoa. There's something else in the box. Okay, now this item, close your eyes. Close your eyes. There's something in this cup. Can you feel it? Ooh, it feels cold. Annabelle, want to see what's in this cup? Put your hand in it.
Cold.
It's cold. What is it?
Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Ooh, ice.
It's icy snow. I got this from our yard. You want to feel it, Garrett? We can wash off the cocoa we put on our face. Oh, I'm giving myself a cocoa face wash. Oof, it's chilly.
You're dropping it all over me.
So ice. There's gonna be something to do with ice. What else is in the box?
Pine tree.
Pine tree needles. These are kind of pokey. Yeah. Pine needles.
What will really hurt you is if you do this.
They can be ouchy.
And especially on this kind.
But they smell pretty good. And finally, we got one last thing in here. One last thing in the box.
Seashell!
There's seashells in this bag. Do you hear that, Garrett? A lot of shells make that noise. There we go. Okay, so what we do today and what we read today is gonna have something to do with all of these items. Glad you're here with us.
So in our special box was baking cocoa, fresh pine needles, some icy snow, and a bag of seashells. Watch and see how we use each one of these items today and where you can find them in the stories we're going to read.
So the first item we pulled out of the bag was...
Cocoa!
What can we make with cocoa?
Hot chocolate.
Let's make some hot chocolate. Kateri, read the ingredients.
A half a cup of water. Check. Check is right here.
Check.
A half a cup of sugar. Check. A half a cup of cocoa powder. Check. 4 cups of milk.
And we are gonna substitute the water for milk. Check.
All right. 1/4 teaspoons of salt. Check. 1/3/4 teaspoons of vanilla. Check.
3/4 a teaspoon of vanilla. Okay.
Simmer water, sugar, cocoa powder, and salt in a pan over moderate heat, stirring until lumps are dissolved. About 3 minutes. Add water to ingredients. Stir and bring slowly to simmer. About 5 minutes.
Okay, we've made our cocoa. You want to give it a try? While we try this cocoa and enjoy it, let's read a story about where cocoa comes from.
Cocoa ice?
Cocoa ice. Your brother and sister and your mommy made some good hot cocoa. Let's read this story about cocoa. It's called Cocoa Ice. Chocolate comes from a faraway island where birds have pink feathers. Leaves grow bigger than I am tall, and it is always summer. Children who live on the island never have to wear boots or clean ashes from the stove because winter never comes. Best of all, on the island of always summer, chocolate grows on trees. The island where chocolate grows on trees is called Santo Domingo, and I know all about it because Uncle Jacob sails there on a training schooner. Once, he brought home a seashell for the mantel shelf. Inside it is pink and smoother than anything in the world. If you hold it to your ear, it whispers, "Summer, summer, summer, summer." Oh my goodness, do you hear that? Summer. Let's read about it. Cocoa.
Early morning is the best time to climb a tree because the sun has not yet had time to bake the earth until it is so hot and steamy like a roasted plantain. If you wait until afternoon, rain will make the trees too slippery to climb. But if you get up while the birds are still looking for their breakfast and sit absolutely still, one may come so close that you can feel its feathers ruffle the air. Still, the main reason why morning is the best time to climb to the top of a very tall tree is that if a schooner comes into the bay, you will be the first to see it. We have every kind of tree around our house. Coconut, papaya, mango, orange, banana, plantain, breadfruit, guava, and a special kind called cacao. Trees that grow chocolate. Cacao trees grow only in shade, so Papa plants young cacaos under tall banana trees that shade the growing cacao. Little pink cacao flowers grow right on the trunk. Green cacao pods grow side by side with the flowers, and next to them grow ripe yellow and red pods, ready to be picked. A cacao tree is always blooming, always ripening, and always ready to harvest. Papa splits the ripe cacao pods open with his machete and scoops out white pulp and pale beans. We spread slippery beans and sticky sweet pulp on a carpet of banana leaves, then cover everything with more banana leaves. I like to eat the sweet cacao pulp while we work, but I don't chew the beans. Once I bit a fresh cocoa bean. It was so bitter it set my teeth on edge. Papa laughed and said, "Don't be so impatient, little one. Wait for the sun to make chocolate." And it does. After a few hot days under the banana leaves, the pale, bitter cocoa beans begin to change color. We pick beans out of the old, smelly pulp and spread them to dry in the sun, turning them until they become a dark, beautiful brown. Today the cocoa beans are drying. There's no work to do in the garden, and Papa says we are going conking. Mama wraps cassava bread in banana leaves and packs it in a basket with guavas for our lunch. It's hot paddling down the river San Juan, and we have a long way to go because after the river reaches the sea, we must paddle along the beach until we reach a cove, sheltered from ocean waves. I'm tired and thirsty when we finally pull the canoe onto the beach. So Papa opens coconuts and we drink their sweet milk. Now it is time to hunt for conchs. I push my basket into the water and wade out until slippery leaves of turtle grass brush against my legs. Conchs are hiding in the turtle grass. Swimming slowly, I push the grass aside. Conchs look a lot like mossy rocks when they stand still, but I'll catch one if it hops. Something moves under the grass, and I dive for it, surfacing with the conch and looking for Papa to show him my catch. But as I reach to put my prize in the basket, a big red claw reaches for me. I squeal and drop the fierce shell. It's only a hermit crab,
But I want conchs, not hermit crabs. Mama lets me have the shells after she steams the conchs and picks the meat out for chowder. I line them up in the sunny clearing where we dry cocoa beans. After they have sat in the sun for a few days, I can brush off the sea moss and made the shells look like dull green rocks in the turtle grass and see them glisten in the sunshine. Inside they are pink like cacao flowers, but smooth and shiny even after they're dry. Our beans are not chocolate yet. They're only cocoa beans, and we must turn them every day until they're dry. Mama roasts them over a hot fire until they begin to smell like chocolate. Then she lets me put them in the mortar and crush them. The best thing about being allowed to pound cocoa beans is the chocolate smell that curls up to your nose. We put the crushed cocoa beans into a chocolate pot. While Mama boils the water, pours it over the beans, and adds sugar, I set out the cups. I think hot chocolate is the most wonderful drink in the whole world, unless there is an ice schooner in the bay. When a schooner comes, Papa drags his canoe to the river. It took a long time to hollow the canoe out of a log, and Papa is very careful never to drag it over a rock. We pile the sacks of dried cocoa beans into the canoe, along with a heap of coconuts and bananas. I climb in between two bunches of bananas. As big as I am, I settle my best conch shell between my feet, and we are on our way. Papa carries me up the side of the ship on a rope, and one of the sailors leans down to lift me over the rail. Other families have come, and Papa must wait his turn to trade with the captain. Clutching my conch shell, I search the crowd for the sailor named Jacob, who once showed me pictures of his faraway country. He spots me first and says hello with a big smile. I show Jacob my beautiful conch shell and let him feel how smooth and pink it is inside. He shows me a picture of a girl, just my age, with a ribbon in her hair. Then he pulls a small square bag with stitching on it from his pocket. Jacob holds the bag to his face, sniffs it, and smiles. I sniff it too. It doesn't smell like chocolate or jasmine or papaya or anything in the world. It smells strange and wonderful. And now it's mine. Papa trades too. I know he must bargain for a bolt of cloth, but I hop with pleasure when I see what else Papa has traded our cocoa beans for. Ice. The sailors lower a block of ice into our canoe, and Papa covers it with banana leaves. Then they hand me over the rail, and when I'm settled, one of them passes down the new cloth. I put it carefully into a dry basket. Holding the bag with the wonderful smell safely in my lap, I wave goodbye to Jacob, the marinero. When we get home, Mama scoops sweet white pulp from a ripe cacao pod and beats it smooth and soft. Then she shaves the ice, stirs it into the cacao pulp, and pours it into cups for us to drink. Cocoa ice is white and sweet, and so cold I think it must be magic. It slides down my throat and makes me shiver to think of children living in such an icy place. Ice schooners come from a land where the river is so hard that people walk on the river. Right on the river. This place where water turns into ice is called Maine, and I know all about it because the sailor Jacob showed me pictures. In Maine, the people build cooking fires inside their houses, and the trees don't have any leaves. And now I know another thing about Maine. I know that it has a wonderful smell. I sniff my balsam bag and try to imagine a land where children walk on rivers of ice. Ice. Winter grips Maine hard. The days are short, bright, and so cold that sometimes nothing moves. Not the wind, not the birds, not even the river. But our kitchen is warm. Mama bakes apple pies in the big stove, and I practice my stitching by making a balsam pillow with fir needles. Papa and Uncle Jacob work for the ice company. If they can fill the big ice house before spring breakup, Uncle Jacob's schooner and other ships can carry pieces of Maine winter to sell in hot countries far away. That's why we worry about snow. Papa and Uncle Jacob and I stand on the riverbank, stamping our boots, watching snow fall on new ice and worrying. "Figure it'll hold?" Papa asks, looking over the thin sheet of ice. Uncle Jacob doesn't answer. They both know that air in the pockets of a million snowflakes will keep the river from freezing, and unless the river freezes, there will be no ice to sell. But this ice is new and too thin to scrape. It has to be tapped, if it will hold the weight of a man. We watch Uncle Jacob slide a wide plank onto the snowy surface and step out onto the river. It holds. Soon a line of men follow Uncle Jacob. They inch forward, tapping holes in the ice with needle bats and mallets. River water seeps up through the holes, turning powdered snow into a soggy slurry. If the weather stays cold, the icy water will freeze solid, thick enough to support a horse. Horses are important once the ice is thick enough to scrape. After every snowstorm, Papa and Uncle Jacob harness our teams to heavy snow scrapers and clean snow off the river so the ice can freeze thick and clear. From Augusta all the way to Merrymeeting Bay, men and teams scrape snow to help the river freeze. One morning when the sky is clear and there is no snow to scrape, Papa takes the wheels off the wagon box and puts the runners on. Mama bundles us in extra hats and mittens and tucks us into a pile of hay under a heavy quilt. Riding in a wagon on runners is like flying. We fly upriver clear to the falls. It's so cold that by morning the river has frozen more than a foot thick. Time to fill the ice houses. I watch the ice box rule a straight line across the river as though he were getting ready for a giant arithmetic lesson. Papa follows that line with the big ice cutter. The cutter's steel teeth slice through solid ice as easy as a knife slicing through Mama's apple pie, but Papa is careful not to cut through to the water. The ice has to stay solid enough to walk on until the whole surface has been grooved and cut into blocks. Back and forth they go, grooving and cutting until the river looks like a giant checkerboard, only all the squares are white. 50 men are at work on the river today, grooving, cutting, sawing, and barring off blocks of ice, floating them across open water, pushing them into place on the elevator chain that lifts them toward the open door of the great ice house. The upper doors are higher than the roof of the church, and the ice boss aims to fill it up to the rafters before breakup. I watch until I get so cold I have to run into the kitchen. Mama makes hot chocolate to warm me up. Ice isn't worth anything unless you can get it all the way to summer without melting. That's why ice house walls are built double. 2 walls with a wide space between, filled with sawdust to keep the cold in. That's why even ice house doors are built double and filled with sawdust to keep summer out. And why we insulate the ice with a blanket of sweet meadow hay. When Uncle Jacob cuts the bales open, the green smell of summer meadows spills from the hay and fills the loft. The men fill the great building 1 room at a time, lining blocks of ice up in perfect rows. Straight lines of ice that reach from wall to wall and rise in towers until they almost touch the roof. After the ice house is full, the boss closes the doors and waits for the river to break up. No matter how cold winter is, summer always comes. New grass and pasture feels soft on my toes, and schooners come back up the Kennebec. Sailors fill the holds with ice, pouring a thick layer of sawdust all around it as they stack it, and covering the sawdust with hay from our meadows. Mama says ice from our rivers goes halfway around the world in ships that come home filled with silk and cashmere, ginger and tea. But the most important ship of all is the ice schooner Uncle Jacob is sailing on today, bound for Santo Domingo to bring home chocolate. I give Uncle Jacob the sweet-smelling balsa pillow I made to carry with him to the island of always summer, and wave until his schooner disappears around the bend. I can't stop crying. Mama says, "I think this would be a good day to make ice cream." Opening the ice house door in summer is like stepping into the castle where winter fell asleep. It's dark and cold, and the men working ice wear hats and gloves and woolen leggings even on the hottest day in summer. They're busy moving ice into the holds of ships lined up at the wharf, but not too busy to set a frozen chunk of winter into the back of our wagon. Mama measures cream and sugar into the can of the ice cream freezer while I carefully pour in the cocoa. Papa chips the ice and packs it around the can with layers of salt. Then I start to turn the crank. It turns easily at first, gentle strokes swirling chocolate cream and sugar round and round in the dasher. But as the cream begins to freeze, my arm grows tired, and the crank turns slow and slower until I can't turn it at all. Then Mama takes over and cranks until the ice cream is so hard the dasher won't turn another inch. When that happens, Mama sets the can on ice to keep until dinner and gives me the dasher to lick. As I sit on the kitchen step licking chocolate from the ice-cold dasher, I close my eyes and imagine the island of always summer, where giant pink seashells line the beaches and children pick chocolate from trees. The end. They had a seashell from Santo Domingo. Now, our shells, we collected them, the ones you saw in our box. They're not from Santo Domingo. We collected these from a vacation that our family went on. The smaller shells come from Florida, the larger ones from Texas. Can you hear the sea like she could in Cocoa Ice? No. I can't hear the sea either. She used a different shell for that, didn't she?
A lot different.
The project we're going to do with these shells is make them into some musical instruments. A lot of the shells that we found on the seashore of Texas had little holes in them. We're going to use those holes to string some string in through and make a big bracelet or necklace full of clanking shells. The more we put in a row, the more they'll clank against each other, making kind of a fun noise that we can shake together to the beat. Have you finished your instrument?
Yep.
I have. I like that noise. Our vacation went a little longer than we planned. How come?
Because my little brother Garrett was in the hospital and he was released.
Yeah, Garrett got sick. He had to spend some time in the hospital. But those extra days that Garrett spent in the hospital gave us a few extra days on the beach. He needed some quiet time to rest and heal, so the rest of us went hunting for seashells. Declan found an awesome one. We collected a bunch, and something crazy happened when we spread them out on our blanket. One of the shells had a crab in it. We were so surprised to see a hermit crab in one of the shells. Eek! We didn't bring that seashell home.
No.
But now that we have all these nice instruments made, let's read our next story. It was hard work, actually, working with the string, using your hands. I wonder if you could do that out sometime. And for sure, we can string those instruments around your wrists, and you can hear them clank. We still have some shells left in the bag, so if we want to do this more later, we can. Garrett, we started this show with a cup full of ice. What happens when you leave ice alone for a while? Does anyone know what happens? Oh no, what's in the cup? It's not ice anymore. What happened?
It melted the water.
Oh, you're gonna drink the water. Declan's drinking the ice water. Now, where do we live, Declan? You know the name of the state?
Minnesota.
We live in Minnesota. In our story, Cocoa Ice, the little girl's family chopped up ice from the rivers in Maine. But I suppose in Minnesota we could chop up ice too. And at least we can drink some icy water. And Declan is smelling that. I wonder why that was in our box.
I know.
Why?
Because in cocoa, to get some pine needles.
Yes. I guess they have pine trees in Maine too. Sounds like Maine has a lot of things that Minnesota has. Ice, cold winters, pine trees, children that like to drink hot cocoa, children that like apple pies. Our next story is not about Minnesota. It is about the same area that Maine is. Maine is in an area of the United States called New England. And this little boy spent some time on the seashore.
And it's called Night of the Moonjellys.
Night of the Moonjellys by Mark Shosh.
And he also lives in Maine.
He lived in New England. I'm not sure if it was Maine, but he did live in New England. Night of the Moonjellys. The summer I was 7, I helped out 2 days a week at Margraw's, a seaside hot dog stand that made the best lobster rolls in New England. It was named after the owners, my grandmother Mary and her sister Grace. One Friday morning, I woke up at Graham's and grabbed my apron on the way out the door. Along the beach, I picked up pieces of sea glass, worn and rounded by the ocean. I put it in a plastic bag with the sea glass, poured in some seawater, and ran the rest of the way to Margraw's. Graham was already there, getting the stand ready for opening. She hugged me and a puff of flour rose up from her apron. I gave her the plastic bag, and she held it up to the light. "It looks like something special is in here with the sea glass, Mark," she said. "What is it, Graham?" "It's a surprise," said Graham, "but it will have to wait until later." She gave me a kiss and put the bag near the sink. There was still a lot of work to do before opening. Graham took a big pinch of salt, stirred it into the lobster sauce, and scooped a bit into a cup. We each took a sweet, buttery sip. Graham folded and pinned my apron to make it fit, then put a paper hat on my head. She started to shape hamburger patties while I stacked them between sheets of wax paper. "Good morning, you two," boomed Uncle Al. He switched on the grill and sprinkled it with slices of pepper and onion. Graham started the fried clams while I checked the ketchup, mustard, and relish jars. I was also in charge of straws and napkins. Aunt Grace walked in, tying her apron just as the first customers drove up. Cousin Raleigh appeared around the corner with a stack of umbrellas on his shoulders. I cranked them open as he dropped them into the holes in the tables. Behind us, the stand had filled. 3 lobster rolls, 2 orange sodas, burger, 3 fries, 2 chocolate shakes. Fire rise crackled. Cheeseburgers sizzled. "More rolls," called Uncle Al. "Rushing through," Graham said, carrying a kettle of clam chowder up front. "Low on straws," Rolly shouted. I hurried to fill the box. Finally, the seats facing the water were empty again. "Let's have lunch while we can," Graham said, bringing over a tray of lobster rolls and onion rings. We ate where we could watch the boats. "I think it'll be even busier tonight," Graham said, "and we're out of onion rings."
She opened a bag of onions and sliced them into loops. We dipped them into the sticky batter, then into breadcrumbs. Uncle Al hauled the popcorn machine to its nighttime place on the counter. Graham filled its tray with corn kernels and butter sticks. Uncle Al switched on the inside lights. 4 popcorn, 4 orange sodas, 2 burgers, 2 dogs, 6 vanilla shakes. "Cheese!" yelled Uncle Al. "Right here," Aunt Grace said, dropping a stack of slices on a plate. Customers crowded the counter. Radios blared baseball and music. Horns beeped. "Ketchup's low!" shouted Uncle Al. "Lobster rolls ready," Graham called. Bats clanged. The register rang. Customers waved as they drove off. I ate a cheeseburger. It was a busy, noisy night. When the last customers left, it was time to begin the night chores. Uncle Al scrubbed the grill to a silvery shine. Graham washed the pots and utensils. I helped her dry them and put them away. Raleigh collected the umbrellas. The counter workers went home. "Good night, you two," Uncle Al said as he locked the stand. He hugged us and drove off in the moonlight, leaving us with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves. Gram handed me a sweater. "You'll need this for the surprise," she said. She started down the pier and stopped at a boat, the Periwinkle. "Welcome aboard," said a cheery voice. Tyler, a fisherman, helped us onto the boat. "There's hot chocolate inside," he said. Tyler threw the ropes onto the dock and climbed up to start the engine. The engine roared as we headed out to the dark sea. "Let's go in and keep warm," Gram said. The cabin smelled of hot chocolate. The lights along the shore got smaller and closer together. We went out farther and farther. The engine slowed. Gram held up the bag of sea glass and jelly. Something sparkled inside. "It's a moonjelly," Gram said. "I almost dropped the pot of chowder when this moonjelly flickered in the bag near the sink." The engine stopped suddenly. Gram peered out the window. "Tyler's found the place where this belongs," she said with a smile. I bounded out of the cabin. Thousands of moonjellies stretched along the sea in every direction. I opened the bag and poured out our moonjelly. Now it was with the others. We stood on the deck and watched the shimmering sea. After a while, Tyler started the engine and we headed home. At the dock, we thanked Tyler and walked to Gram's. She made chamomile tea and put some melon on a plate. She held up the pieces of sea glass to the light, then put them into a small box. She was writing something on the box when my eyes began to close. It read, "With love to Mark from Gram, Night of the Moonjellys."
The end. That was a good story. Didn't that seem so cozy on the boat drinking cocoa with his grandma? Makes me want to have some more cocoa. I think I'll have another sip. Would you like to try some, Garrett?
Since Garrett has a G-tube, I'll need to fasten this Mickey extension into the little hole in his belly so he can get some cocoa. The hole in his belly goes directly into his stomach so he can get this without needing to drink it through his mouth. I'm pouring the cocoa in. This is how Garrett gets all of his food and water. We can give him little tastes in his mouth, but for the most part, he gets everything he needs right through this G-tube.
And that's the end of our show. Did you notice how we used all the items that were in our box?
But they smell pretty good. Thanks for being with us this week.
Next time.
Bye.
Next time.